question about recovery. And with the understanding that recovery is when the specific adaptations to exercise actually occur, I'd love for you to share with us what happens or needs to happen during recovery in order for us to get better at anything, endurance, strength, etc. But also how specific types of exercise stimuli and specific types of adaptations that we trigger, so running a bit further, lifting a bit more weight, slowing the cadence of a given movement, etc., how those specific types of triggers for adaptation relate to the specific or maybe similar types of recovery that are required for us to make progress.
In one of our previous episodes, we were talking about how the Harvard Fatigue Lab really identified this idea of homeostasis, or at least sort of championed it for it. And that's...
I wanted to clarify for people that when Dr. Galvin says insult, while he may actually insult me, insult is the nerd speak terminology for some sort of damage inflicted to a tissue or system. So he's speaking about the insult to the muscle or insult to the neuromuscular connection created by adding more weight to the bar, running a further distance, running a bit faster or pedaling faster. That creates a micro insult or an insult. And now, because everyone is familiar with psychological and verbal insults, you'll never forget that biological concept.
It's important we tag another thing here, which is called hormesis. It's one of my favorite phenomenon, and it effectively means this, that there is a dosage or toxicity response to almost everything. And if you think about this in the context of, say, drugs, what this means is if I gave you 10 milligrams of something, that it would be okay. But if I give you 20, it'd be a problem. And eventually, if I go up and give you enough, this thing turns toxic. This is a case of everything from cyanide, where it can actually be in small dosages in nature. In fact, it's in many of the fruits that you eat, but it's at a dosage that it doesn't matter. If that dosage gets higher, though, that actually can cause problems. And if it is high enough, it can actually kill you instantaneously. The back end of that, though, is because you introduce this micro insult, as you framed it for me perfectly, your body will then adapt to it. And that's really what's happening with exercise adaptation is it is a hormetic stressor. And why that's important is if you look at the immediate responses to exercise, you see an extremely large increase in inflammation. You see oxidative stress. You see a whole cascade of autophagy. Like all these problems, quote unquote, happen. And it's what's actually quite funny here is as a part of my PhD, the academic portion, I had to go through the medical side of the school. And so my physiology class was in med school. So I'm the only non-medical doctor in that class, right? I'm a PhD. So I leave my lab, I walk across campus, and I take physiology class with these folks. And I died the whole time internally because every time we would cover a new area, it was basically the exact same value or number. In a medical setting is like, oh my gosh, they're going to die. And in a performance setting is like, this person's in fantastic shape. It's like, I never, it still amuses me to this day, obviously, because it's just simple things like total blood volume, right? And you cover like, okay, if you have a patient come in, their blood volume is 6 liters, immediately get them on a diuretic of some sort because they're going to have a heart attack because blood pressure gets up, right? And I'm immediately thinking, damn, 6 liters, that person is super fit. Because that is actually a positive adaptation to training. It's one of the most important, if not the most important adaptation to endurance training is enhanced total blood volume. So you'll store more blood in your body when you're more fit than you are less fit. So I mean, I could go on. All these things, sodium concentrations, potassium concentrations, are like, you look at these things on paper and you don't know if that person's about to die because they're 65 years old and out of shape, or if that person's going to break a world record in the marathon.
This brings up a very important tangent, which is, for instance, if you go and take a blood test, and you are somebody who exercises very intensely with resistance training, your blood creatinine levels can be way out of range. Yeah. And if your physician doesn't know that you're doing certain forms of exercise, might say, wow, there's a lot of muscle tissue damage occurring in your body.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, your total blood volume is dangerously high, when in fact you are far healthier and indeed much fitter than the person whose numbers would be in range. That said, obviously there are limits to these statements, whereby you would want to be cautious and take action to ameliorate a very elevated blood creatinine level or something of that sort. But the point you're bringing up is also one about the field of medicine, which is that many, not all, but many physicians don't take into consideration the outside activities that people are doing. And so it becomes a kind of plug and play type way of looking at blood charts.
Yeah, we've done many thousand athletes' blood chemistry, and we don't use, first of all, we never look at disease stuff. That's not what we do. We take people that are healthy and try to optimize performance. And blood chemistry is one of the best tools. If you really understand what you're doing there, you can get some incredibly powerful information out of blood chemistry. That actually relates to what we're going to talk to today.